Guys, 2 weeks left until summer. But some of you have already taken a little bit of your summer break when you weren't turning stuff in. Let's not continue that this next couple weeks. Let's finish strong. Okay, those of you that have been working this whole time, 2 weeks left. Just 2 weeks left. And then we're on to summer break. 2 weeks, okay? This week is really important. We're gonna go over things that are gonna be on our test this week. And then next week, okay, we're gonna go over things that are gonna be on a few assessments that we're gonna do that won't be counted as tests, they'll be counted as quizzes, but they'll cover stuff from different points throughout the year. So these next 2 weeks are still important, okay? This one, we're getting ready for the test this week, okay? But before we do that, let's go ahead and let's go over our homework from last week, or at least a few of the problems. Okay, activity I, we had to translate obviously to English, and we should know by this point that we don't translate directly from what's in the Bible that coordinates with the reference, okay? Because Latin Vulgate's different, our translation is gonna be a little bit different, okay? Hopefully we remember that when we were translating. But we should all know who this is, okay? Peter, that one's pretty obvious, okay? Peter. And here we see our verb, which typically would come next in English, is not at the end of the sentence, nor is it after the subject. It's kind of smack dab in the middle. Okay, so we'll leave that for now. Okay, we'll come back to it. It's going to go right here, but we'll come back to it and we'll explain why it's in the middle as opposed to at the end or right behind the subject. Okay, so our first phrase after our verb, our first phrase, from or away from. And then, because it's that little circle thing there, it means a little ship or boat, so we'll put the boat. And then our next phrase, super aquam. Super, again, in your book says that it is upon. And then say water or the water. Peter, blop, from the boat upon water. Okay, so in here, it would probably make more sense if we actually put the article the, as opposed to just leaving it. Okay, so sometimes we just have to work through some things to figure out whether we need articles or not in Latin. In this sentence right here, our verb being right here, ambulabat, a form of ambulat or ambulare, which means to walk. And we have that imperfect tense sign right there. So I'm talking about probably something that wasn't completed and in the past, so it's incomplete. And then we have our ending there, which is a T. Okay, we already know that we have a third person subject anyways, but that verb is helping to remind us of that. So our imperfect tense sign with our verb, we would say was walking. Peter was walking from the boat upon the water. Okay, so here's why it's in between the phrases. Okay, because if it was at the end and you put the sentence together, it would seem like he was walking just from the boat upon the water. So the boat that is upon the water is where he's walking from. But that they need to tell us specifically that he's walking from the boat upon the water, as we know the story. Right? Like if you hadn't heard the story before and you just saw this in Latin and the phrases were put together like that, from the boat upon the water, like of course a boat is upon the water. Like that's not a big deal. The boat was upon the water. Duh, that's what boats do. But it's emphasizing the verb here because it wants to let you know that it was in between here that he was doing the action. From the boat, okay, he was walking upon water. Okay, so that's why that one was in the middle there. If you had any questions about it, nobody sent any questions about it, but it does look different from our average Latin sentence. Then we skip down to activity J, number 6. Pick this one because it's a question, and the questions tend to confuse us, especially with our new verbs that we have now. Okay, so first of all, my verb, my subject, talking about you here, and then S is R. Okay, you, it's used with you, so those go hand in hand. Again, we don't always need the pronoun, but in this sentence they had it, probably for emphasis. And we know that it's a question. Okay, so most likely instead of saying you are, it's a question, so it's saying are you, and this in your book, because it has a circle, is new. Are you new in the Senate? Pretty easy translation there. Are you? It's a question coming. And new, because if novus was after here, then my sentence would say, are you in the new Senate? Okay, but they put novus after two because it's asking about you being new, not the Senate. And then we have an activity A. We're working on number 5, which is another reference to Jesus Christ's ministry, like in activity I. And let's do number 5. And we have in brackets, Jesus said, so you only have to translate this part right here. And this direction said, use pronoun subjects in some of the sentences. So you may not have used it in this specific one. You may have. Okay, but we're going to translate this one anyways. So when we are talking about R, remember we just saw R over here as S. However, when it's talking about ye and friends as plural, we are talking about second person plural, not singular. So my verb should not be S. Some of us, we put S just because we saw, oh, R, S. Not always the case, because this is plural, not singular. Okay, so instead, my verb is going to be estis, okay? You are, and then I need my friends, okay? Again, friends is going to be plural, the plural form of amicus, it's amici, and my adjective afterwards has to agree in number, size, number, gender, and case. In order to do that, okay, I also have to make that plural. And then if I use my pronoun in this, I would have vos, because that's a plural form of you. All right, so moving on from the activities that we did for homework, the test that you will have will be on the portal, but there will not be any sentence translations. Okay, there will be other types of translations and things, but no sentence translations. However, what we go over in this video is going to be very important to know exactly how to go about that test. We are going to start by a little bit of review, okay, from things further back in chapter 14, but they're important to lay the groundwork for the things that we did in chapter 14. All right, so usually in Latin, we can put the verb at the end, right? And the subject is at the beginning. But sometimes we can omit the subject from a Latin sentence because we know who is doing the action based off of the verb ending, okay? So in Latin, sometimes you may omit the subject, okay? Because we can tell who is doing the action because of the verb ending in Latin. In English, we usually can't do that. We have understood you and things like that, but Latin does that type of thing a lot more often. We have different types of verbs. We have regular verbs and irregular verbs. Okay, a regular verb would be something like walk. Okay, so when I want to put it in the past, it would be walked, right? I could even add something for in the present, a little bit more specific, walking. Okay, however, I may have a verb like this, throw, where if I add the ed, throwed, hopefully in 9th grade, we are not saying throwed. Okay, some of my kindergartners and first graders say that, but we do not say throwed, okay? It is through. So at that point, we change the stem a little bit, so it is not an irregular verb because we have to change the spelling to go through the past tense, okay? Another form of a verb that we use a lot in English that is an irregular verb is any form of be, okay? So is, so we're talking about something in the present. It is, if we go to the past, again, it's irregular because we don't just add ed, it goes to was, okay? So this is an irregular verb. Our Latin verbs that correlate to is and was are est and rat. Okay, is and was. Okay, so this is something that's going to be important to know, is regular and irregular verbs, and the main irregular verbs that we use in English and Latin. And when we look in the past form in English, okay, it's different in Latin than it is in English. Latin does not technically have a past tense. Instead, it has something that is used for continued or incomplete action that we call the imperfect tense. Okay, and so when I say walk to walked or was walking, okay, that would be an incomplete action, and that would be imperfect. Okay, so when we do that, when we change a regular verb to the imperfect tense in Latin, remember we have this tense sign. Okay, that is our tense sign to know that it is in the imperfect tense. Okay, so as opposed from, let's do the easy one that everybody knows, ambulat, which means he walks. Okay, if I say ambu labat, he was walking. Okay, my T tells me that it's a third person singular. Okay, so he, and then my tense sign lets me know that it's imperfect. And how do I know where to put it? I can go to the infinitive. Okay, to walk, and I take out the infinitive, the RE, and what am I left with? Ambula. Okay, first conjugation verb, so I know to put my BA after the A. Okay, and then after the BA, I put my ending to let me know that it is a third person singular. And going back to this right here, this is the second principal part. Okay, remember we learned a little bit about principal parts, what the book said about them relating to Latin and English, where the book says that there are 3 English principal parts, but in modern English, a lot of other curriculums say that there's 4. In Latin, in the book, it says that there's 4 Latin and 3 English. Okay, it's taken out 1. But again, that's not as important as what we're saying here. This is the second principal part of the verb in Latin, which is the RE, also called the infinitive. So again, if I translate directly, okay, usually we see below, okay, which means I walk, okay, and then the infinitive of walk is to walk. So the RE represents the infinitive to walk. All right, so that again should help us with a good portion of the test there. And then we move on to conjugation. So let's use pugnare, okay, which means to fight. Pugnare means to fight. And so that is a first conjugation verb because I have a long A before the RE. Okay, so here's what we mean by conjugation, by conjugating, okay? I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to go down my list. OST mustisnt. Okay, that's my first, second, third person singular, first, second, third person plural. All right, so I already have first person singular. OS. Remember, my A for first conjugation is always long unless it comes before a T, an NT, or an M. All right, so pugno, pugnas. Remember, they take out the vowel before the O. Okay, so it doesn't make a weird blend. So we see the A the rest of the way down. Pugnat. Again, this is the form that we usually see throughout our book. At least for the most of the year we did first person, second person, third person, singular. All right, and let's get the pugnare out of the way for now, just so we can continue our conjugation. and O-S-T, moose, okay? Pugnamus, moose-tis, pugnatus, moose-tis-nt, pugnat. Alright, so I have pugno, pugnas, pugnat, pugnamus, pugnatus, pugnant. Alright, so I have my singular first, second, third person, plural first person, second person, third person. Alright, so my mistake here, the A before the MUS is long, okay? Only if the ending is just an M is the A short. Alright, so that A stays long because it's the MUS ending, not just an M ending. Alright, so next we're going to translate these. Alright, so remember that in Latin we can make sentences smaller because we can fit more onto the ends of words, like nouns and verbs to get rid of a few words. And unlike we do in English. Okay, so in English you could have 3 translations for this. Okay, Latin's a little bit more simple. So we have, first of all, it's first person singular. All right, so I'm doing the action. Okay, so I fight is one way. I am fighting. And then my third one, I do fight. Alright, so those are my 3 possible translations for just this one word. Right? This one here, I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm talking about second person singular. So you fight. You are fighting. And then, I know, I write small, it's hard to read. Bad handwriting the way it is. And then you do fight. You know, in order to keep this straight, let's do this. Make squiggly lines because I can't write straight. Alright, so then I have pugnat, the third person singular. So we are talking about something that we've been using all year. So when we refer to a noun that is not there, since we don't have any context, it's not going to be, Pete or Steven or Sarah or anything. We're just going to use pronouns, right? So we are going to either say he, she, or it. And again, for sake of what the book does and make it as generic as possible, he fights. And remember, in English, we don't say he fight. Okay, let's use the right ending here. He is fighting. And then we don't say he do fight, we say he does fight. Right, so now we are going to work with our plural. Right, our plural endings here. When I say first person in the plural, I'm talking about we. Okay, and we would write all that in there. We fight. Okay, some of it's going to change. Instead of we am fighting, obviously, we are fighting. I have more room to write across here. And then you plural, okay. This one is actually going to be the same thing. Ain't no changes to be made there. And then we have pugnat, plural, third person, talking about they. Okay, so they fight. They are fighting. And they do fight. Okay, so again, going to be similar to something that we'll do on the test, where we put them in first person, second person, third person based off the endings, singular and plural. All right. So again, it is important to know your conjugations. A, the E's, okay, long E, short E, and then long I. This verb here is pugnare, so it is a long
A.
So it is a first conjugation verb. So I know that my A is the end of the stem, okay, so it's my stem vowel. So I'm adding my endings to the end of the verb, which is after the long A. So that's how I know where to put these on my verbs, is where is the stem vowel. Okay, stem vowel is either the A, long E, short E, long I. Again, first conjugation verb, so it's a long A. So because of the way we have to take tests now, you won't necessarily see it set up in a form like this. So I may ask you, what is the first person singular form of pugnare? Okay, and you would say pugno. And then if the question also included what are the three possible translations, you would put semicolon or whatever, and then the rest of your answer there. If I say what is the second person plural form of pugnare, you put pugnatus, and then the three translations after that. Okay, so it'll all be in one blank. You're not going to see a chart like this because, again, of the way that we have to go about testing. So let's move on to the imperfect tense. All right, so I'm going to have the same endings as I did before, ost, mustus, und, but I'm also adding the imperfect tense sign, which is the V long A. All right, so my first one I'm going to do to make it imperfect, because right now this is present tense. Okay, on below is just present tense. This is the only one where it actually changes from the present tense, the ending does. Okay, so it is bam, bos, bot, bamus, botus, bot, and we'll see where it's, the rest of that is the same as the present, we just added the VA, but this one is different because we don't have a long O. Bam. Remember, if the ending is M, we don't have a long A, because that's my first person. And then my second person, ambula bot. Okay. Ambula. Second person. And my second person, yeah, I had to get a new marker. Ambula boss. Okay. Third person. Ambula bot. O. Okay. In the present tense, that'd be OST. The imperfect, just that one's different. ST mustus unt. I need the V long A. And then my first person plural. Ambulobamus. Ambulobatus. Ambulabat, okay? First person, second person, third person singular, plural. Alright, so other than the first person, the endings are all still the same. TIS. I just added the B long A, and I don't have a long A before the T, NT, or M. So again, if we do this on test, it's not going to be set up this way as a chart. I might ask, what is the first person imperfect tense form of ambulare? And first person imperfect, we'll say plural, okay, would be ambulabamus. If I said singular, be ambulabam, okay? So you have to look at every part of the direction very specifically so that you know if it's present tense or imperfect tense, and then is it singular or plural, and then is it first person, second person, third person. Okay, so again, if I say first person, plural, imperfect tense, we're talking about this one right here. All right, so now let's do our be verbs, okay, and conjugate those. So it is be. Let's do singular, plural. And so we have another chart that you had in your book, so should make this relatively easy to memorize. And again, this is an irregular verb, so it's not going to be as simple as memorizing regular verb endings. Okay, however, this is so far the only irregular verb chart that we have, so again, it should be confusing with any other irregular verb chart. So we have I, and that would be I am, okay? Then we have you, it's second person, and that would be S. And then we have the one that we've been using for a while, pretty much all year, third person singular as a linking verb, that would be est. Sumus, estis, sunt. All right, so that is my be verb conjugation chart. Singular, plural, I am, you are, he is, she is, it is. And then we have we are, you are, but talking about plural here, so that's the difference. And then they are would be our translations there. So let's try to make them imperfect, and then that's a completely different chart as well, because it is an irregular verb, at which point it changes spelling completely. And to remind us that this is imperfect, plural. We talked about it briefly a few chapters before we actually introduced the full past, and we used a rot for was. But we have in our chart ras, rot, and then that is our singular. I was, you are, he was. And then for our plural, this is where it may look a little bit similar. Aramus, aratus, arant. All right, so if by chance I were to also ask you for the pronouns in Latin, remember they did not use them often, but they did use them for emphasis, okay? There is a chart for that as well. In case you don't realize, charts are gonna be pretty important on this test. You're not gonna be filling in charts, but I'm gonna be asking you questions from the charts. Remember, if we are talking I, the pronoun is ego, lego my ego, to, you, and this is one that had three because we're talking about he, she, and it. He, she, it. And then we go over to the plural, and plural, we. You'll see this spelling similar to a lot of things related to we in Spanish. Nos, okay, you'll see that quite a bit. Woes, just did that in one of our activities. Right. Again, these are our pronouns. And then for the last one, again, we're gonna have three in case when it says they, we're talking about masculine, feminine, or neuter. And so there we have our pronouns along with our be imperfect verb conjugations, right? So talk about present tense verb conjugations, first, second, third, singular, plural, imperfect be verbs conjugation, singular, plural, and then also in parentheses our pronouns that go along with those. And hopefully this is a very useful study tool for you. However, I want to make a disclaimer here, I'll say it again later, do not use this video as your only form of studying, okay? You need to also study on your own. I'm telling you things that you need to know. Then you actually need to go and get to know those things, get to know the charts. I'm just trying to help you out on what to study. All right, so again, that's our verb conjugations and how to deal with them. Both our regular and irregular, and our present and imperfect. And then we are going to move on to the last thing we're going to cover in the video, and that is the infinitive parts of the verb. We're just reviewing that a little bit. And in order to help us out with that, we are going to actually work on activity M. All right. Now there's a lot of directions there for activity M. However, there's not a lot to that. Basically, all you're doing is you're putting the infinitive translation for docere for number 1. Okay, instead of saying I teach, you would say to teach. Okay, it says this review can help you remember the infinitive of several verbs you have worked with in this chapter. All you have to do is write the English meaning of the infinitive of each verb. For example, to stand. Okay, so again, number 1, dokeo, dokere. Instead of translating dokeo, you are just translating dokere. So it would be to teach. All right, and then number 2 is diko or dikere. So it's not in the same conjugation as that first one because it is a short E before the RE as opposed to a long E. All right, so I want you to go ahead and pause the video right now and go ahead and work through those on your own. Like it says in the instructions, try to do as many as you can without looking in the book. And remember, they are going to be infinitives. So instead of just teach, you need to have to teach, okay? You need to have the infinitive part of that in there. So go ahead and work on those. Pause the video. When you're done, and you've done as many as you can, then we will continue writing the rest. All right, but not until you try to do as many on your own as you can. Look, if you're not trying to do this on your own, and you're just trying to do everything that I'm doing and you're not doing any extra work, you're not going to do that well on the test, okay? So go ahead and pause the video. So go ahead and pause the video now. 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 All right, so we already did the first one, to teach. The next one is dikere, which you technically could have a couple different answers to this one. You could say just to say, or you could say to speak, which is usually what we use it for. Number 3 is narrare. Technically, you could say to narrate, or to tell. We usually use to tell. And then we have audire, to hear. Ambulare, already done this one a bazillion times. To walk. Capere, which comes from what we know as capit, so you could say to catch, to seize, to take, any of those. And then iacere, to rest, or to lie, as in lying down. And then we have habere, habet, have, to have. And let's go back up. Pugnare, again, we've already done this one. To fight. Timere. Okay, timet comes from that. Venire, to come, and then esse, to be. All right, so we don't see esse very often in Latin. However, we are using our infinitives here. So again, if we see the RE, we know that we need to write the infinitive. So if I tell you to write the infinitive of audio, audire, you would not tell me here or I hear, because I said the infinitive. The infinitive would be audire, which would be to hear, right? So make sure that we look at the directions anytime we see the infinitive being asked for, that we put the infinitive and not just what we think that we should put. Because again, if I see this, and I just see in the blank audio and dire, and I don't read the directions, I'm going to translate both. But if I say I just want the infinitive, write just the infinitive, okay? You're going to need to read the directions very carefully on this test, okay? And again, this is our first and only Latin test on the portal, okay, for some of us. So make sure that we read through everything and don't just try to whip by in as little time as we can, okay? Let's use our time wisely. Video should not take super long, okay? Then you'll have to study, okay? Make sure, do not just watch the video and then just go take your test. So do not just, once you finish this, go take the test. Don't do that. You need some time to study on your own. Hopefully this video showed to you that you need to study, right? So when you're done with this video, whether it's today or the next day, okay, study the things that you took from notes from this video and then take the test, right? Make sure you study first because this is going to be your only test grade for this quarter. However, it will not be your last grade, all right? If you have any questions, let me know before you take the test, okay? Don't start asking me questions during the test because you only have a certain amount of time to take the test. If you have questions coming up, okay? If you do have a question during the test, I will try my best to respond to you as quickly as possible, but don't stop taking the test, waiting for an answer back from me. Go through the rest of the test, and then once you get to the end, go back to that question that you had an issue on, okay? So let's, again, use our time wisely even when it comes to taking our test. I really think that this should help you out for the test, okay? So I'm not gonna say I hope this helps you out because I know that it should help you out if you study. That's not on me, that's on you, and some of you, you need to study on your own. I know it's difficult to stare at a book when you have all day to do something else, okay? But just focus, enough time to study, and focus taking that test, and you should do fine, right? You should, if you do both those things, all right? So again, after you take the test, 1 more week. Don't hustle to get through the test because then that only means 1 week. 1 more week to make sure that you have decent grades, okay? That's what we get excited about for the 1 more week for. Not because we're almost done, but because it's urgent because I have this many more chances to make sure I have a good grade, all right? Let's think of it that way as opposed to just waiting for summer. I have this amount of time to improve my grade, all right? I see you guys for the last week next week.